Today we are going to look at correcting a color photo. And we looked earlier at basic black and white correction, fixing surface defects like scratches and cracks using the spot healing brush. We looked at setting the black point and the white point to restore contrast to the photo. But many of you brought in color photos, and that's fine. They can be just a little more challenging to get right, but it's not that difficult. We're going to color correct this photo, first of all. And the problem you run into with color photos is not all of the colors will fade evenly. Reds tend to fade out faster than other colors. Sometimes color photos will take on a yellow or a brownish tint over time. So you have to know exactly how much of which color has faded out, or how far off this photo is from being the true color. And the irony here is we use a white area to determine how far off the colors are. And there's a new palette I'm going to introduce you to, and it's under Window, and it's called Info. And this Info palette gives us a CMYK, or cyan, magenta, yellow, and black value of whatever the mouse cursor is hovering directly over at that point in time. So if I put this right on this white area of his eye, and I'll go ahead and zoom in on this a little bit so that we can see it a little bit. Okay, this should be white. But if you look at these values right up here, I'm reading, right in what should be a white area, I'm reading cyan of 30, magenta of 35, and yellow of 60. Okay, if this area was white, these cyan, magenta, and yellow values would be a lot closer to each other. If they were all, say, right at 30 or right at 20, then that area would indeed be white. But with the yellow value reading 60 and the cyan and the magenta values reading 30 and 35, we know that we have way too much yellow in this photograph. This photograph has faded towards the yellow end of the spectrum. So there's a way to fix that. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these. I was showing my other class how to do this, so those can go away. And we're going to add something called a color balance correction layer. So when I put the color balance correction layer on, you'll see the color balance correction layer pop in over top the background layer. And then you get this controller for the color balance correction layer. And to get rid of the excess yellow, we add some blue, because adding the opposite of a color cancels that color out. Just like in Art 1, when you were doing your color wheels, adding the opposite of a color on the color wheel balances that out. So since we know we have a little too much yellow in this, because we used our Info palette to check, if I add some blue, there we go. Okay? I'm going to test it again. Okay, my yellow's down just a little bit. Okay, it's down to 46. I'm going to add a little more. And it's getting a little too blue, so I'm going to add a little green, the opposite of magenta. Oh, it's getting there. There we go. Okay, now if we look at those values, you see two sets of values there. You see by cyan, you see the 28 and the 31. It's showing you the original photo underneath, or the original photo values on the left, and then the corrected values that the correction layer is adding in on the right. So I'm reading 31 cyan, 35 magenta, and 38% yellow. So I'm going to go in just a touch more blue, and then we're going to test in that white area. Okay, so I'm reading 33, 36, and 36, and only 1% black. So that is what a white area should look like, okay? So by having all three of those real close to each other, we know that we've restored the correct colors just by testing in the white. So let's zoom back and let's take a look at this whole image. Okay, and with the correction layer, we can turn it off and we can see what it looked like before. And we can turn it on and we can see what it looks like now. And you can tell his flesh tones before had way too much yellow in them. And then when we turn on the correction layer, we get the proper flesh tones. Okay? And we're still going to go ahead and we're going to set the black point and white point. And I'm going to go ahead, instead of doing that under Image, Adjustments, Levels, I'm going to add a Levels adjustment layer here on top of the whole thing. So I'm going to go ahead and find my levels. There it is. I'm going to look at my histogram. And as you can see, it looks like there are good rich blacks here, but the histogram is telling us there really aren't. So I'm going to pull this over a little bit, just a little, not much. And we've got lots and lots of whites. So we're going to leave that, and there we go. So here it is before and after, and you can definitely tell a difference. The shadows got a little richer and darker. The flesh tones are on. Here it is before, and here it is after. Okay, so we've managed to color correct this. Now, a common mistake is people will go ahead and start trying to fix things with their spot healing brush, and then I get, Mr. Atchison, my spot healing brush isn't working. Well, you need to be doing those on the background layer and not on one of the adjustment layers. So check that before you yell for me, please. I'm going to spot heal those little flicks right there. There's another, looks like a little flick there in his forehead. Spot heal that. And this one's getting there. Now, I've purposely made some marks over here to kind of simulate a tear because I want to show you another technique. And I call this technique making a patch. Okay? This wallpaper has a pattern in it. Kind of looks like some sort of like tree pattern going on there. And let's say we've got a big piece of our photograph torn or missing. And this could be someone's shirt, or it could be a collar of a shirt, or it could be a part of an ear or something where the photograph has become torn or missing. And to make a patch, what you do is you find another thing like an ear or a collar or something, and you select it. I like to use the freehand select tool to do this. And I like to put quite a little bit of feather on it so that you can hide the edges. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll put a value of 50 feather. And I'm going to select this pattern here. I'm going to Command J it up onto its own layer. Okay, notice I'm working on the background layer and I'm copying this up. And remember the old rule of thumb with adjustment layers. If this is on top, it doesn't affect this part, this layer. So we want to keep all of these under our adjustments. Okay. Notice this area right here, how it changed when this came up. That's because this piece is now above the adjustment layers. I'm going to move that piece here so that I have like a texture to put down. Okay, and I think I had a little too much feather, but you get the point. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to erase the edge of that a little bit to reveal this line that's already there. Okay, so I've patched this spot right here with a little section from right here. Now, if I were doing this for real, I'm not real happy with that because I had too much feather on it. So I'll go ahead and do it again with, this time I'm going to cut the amount of feather in half. We'll go 25. And I'll select, say, this bit of tree right here. Command J it up onto its own layer. There we go. That's better. Move it right down here like so. So I've created a patch. Bring up my erase tool. I've created a patch that just really fixes that quickly. Okay, and like I said, that can be the collar of a shirt or part of a shirt that's missing, part of someone's face is missing. We've actually even had students have a whole eye that was missing from a photograph and pick up like the left eye, patch it, flip it, or reverse it using the free transform and put it down as the right eye. And while it's not ideal, it will create a pretty convincing fix. Also, sometimes your images come in looking like this. This one's sideways. And that can be fixed by image rotation. In this case, we want to go 90 degrees counterclockwise to straighten this up. This image doesn't need a lot done to it, so this person is going to bring in another one that really needs fixing. But I wanted to show you rotate image. I wanted to show you how to real quickly patch an image like I did here with a patch. I wanted to show you how to color correct. This is without the color correction. Okay, and the great thing about using these adjustment layers is you can always go back and bring the controller up and go back and fix them later. Okay, so like this one. There we go. A little bit, just a touch of green, and I think we're really close on this. So go ahead and check this. Yeah, we're 38 cyan, 37 magenta, 39 yellow. So we have managed to completely color correct this. But look for a white area, use the info palette to test, and make sure that white area is something that you know is pure white, like the whites of someone's eyes, teeth. This t-shirt should be pretty white, and you'll notice when I test there, cyan is 13, magenta is 12, yellow is 11. So we've got our colors back where they need to be. I wanted to return to this image because there's one other thing I wanted to show you how to do on this, and that is to increase the saturation of these colors. As you may remember from Art 1, saturation is the intensity of the colors, and if I add, and these colors are more or less accurate now. We know that by looking at the info palette and testing in a white area. Again, I've got 35, 30, 45. Could maybe stand a little more tweaking in the blue end of it to get it just right. But these colors are also overall faded. So if I go to hue saturation and I raise the saturation level here, those colors, they're not just getting brighter, they're getting more intense. The reds become more red, the blues become more blue. The tan of the curtains, as you can see, the colors really popped up there. So it's important that we also get some saturation if the colors have faded overall. So you can do that with a hue saturation adjustment layer. Should be on the very top. And there's one other adjustment layer that will do it for you, and that is the vibrance. Either one of those. Both have the saturation sliders, and they'll let you kind of oversaturate or add more intensity to your color. So give that a try too if you're kind of disappointed that your colors are a little pale. Notice how much bluer his shirt is. Here, we'll turn all of our adjustment layers off. Notice how much bluer his shirt is when we add a little vibrance, how much this pops out in the background.